When we think about animal survival, we often picture a straightforward struggle. But for the incredible Sumatran elephant, it's not just a struggle. It's a full-blown war. And what's wild is that they're fighting it on two completely different fronts. One you can see and one you can't. So let's dive into this hidden conflict.
So here it is, the Sumatran elephant. Just a magnificent giant, right? But it's also one of the most endangered elephants out there. And these incredibly smart animals are caught in, well, you could call it a pincer movement. On one side, you've got the very visible conflict with the human world. And on the other, there's this invisible war happening right inside their own bodies.
All right, so let's set the stage for this fight. We're heading to Indonesia, specifically to the Way Kambas National Park. This place is supposed to be a sanctuary, a safe haven, but it's also become a major battleground.
Now, this park didn't just pop up overnight. Its protection was built up piece by piece over a long time. It all started way back in 1924, when it was first marked as a protected forest. Then, you fast forward to 1985, and its status gets a big upgrade to a conservation area. But the real game changer was in 1999, when it officially became what it is today. A national park and, crucially, an elephant conservation center. Every one of those steps was a hard-won fight. And we're talking about a seriously big piece of land. 130,000 hectares. I mean, it sounds enormous, right? But for an animal as big as an elephant, an animal that needs to constantly roam and eat, well, even a space this vast can start to feel a little small. And that's exactly where the first front in this war really kicks off.
So if you want to understand this conflict, you've got to start with one of the most amazing pieces of biological engineering on the planet, the elephant's trunk. It is an absolute marvel of nature. And it's also the very thing that puts them on a direct collision course with people.
Get this, an elephant's trunk has around 50,000 individual muscles. To put that in perspective, your entire body, arms, legs, everything, has just over 600. It's insane. That's what gives them this incredible blend of raw power and super delicate control. They can knock over a tree and then pick up a single blade of grass. And that dexterity makes them very picky eaters.
And this is where it all comes to a head. See, out in the wild, they use that amazing trunk to pick out grasses, strip bark, and grab wild bananas. But why work that hard when there's a buffet right next door? With that exact same precision, they can wander onto a farm and help themselves to stuff that's way more delicious and packed with calories. We're talking sugarcane, oil palm, coconuts, you name it. And this love for our crops? That's the absolute core of the human-elephant conflict.
Okay, so that's the battle outside. That's the first front. But remember, there's another one. And this second front is totally different. It's silent, it's invisible, and in its own way, it's just as dangerous. This is the enemy within.
So think about it. What if the berry food that's meant to keep an elephant alive is actually hiding a secret danger? What if those plants and grasses are carrying tiny, microscopic invaders? Yep, this is where the war goes internal. We're talking about parasites.
Specifically, we're looking at gastrointestinal parasites. Now, these aren't like lions or tigers that attack from the outside. No, these are tiny organisms, worms and flukes, that basically set up camp inside an elephant's gut. And they're not looking for a quick kill. Instead, they just slowly and steadily drain the elephant of vital nutrients. It leads to all sorts of problems, constant sickness, malnutrition, and for the young ones, it can stunt their growth for life.
And here are the culprits. Let's meet the intruders. On the left, you're looking at the egg of a nematode worm, Strongyloides, and on the right, that's the egg of a liver fluke, Fasciola. Don't let their size fool you. These little microscopic packages are basically the seeds of a full-scale internal invasion.
So the big question is, how on earth do these microscopic things get from the dirt and water all the way into the gut of a 2-ton elephant? Well, they have these incredibly clever, almost genius-level survival strategies. And scientists have a name for it, the life cycle.
Yeah, you can literally think of a life cycle as the parasite's secret roadmap to survival. It's a whole journey, often with multiple steps, and it's all designed for just one purpose: survive long enough to make more parasites. Okay. Let's start with that nematode worm, Strongyloides. I know, this diagram looks a little intense, but don't worry, its journey is actually a pretty wild story of adaptation. We're going to break it down step by step.
All right, here's how it works. First, the larvae get passed out in an elephant's feces. Once they're in the soil, they transform into an infectious stage. And here's the creepy part, they don't even need to be eaten. These little guys can burrow directly through the skin of a new elephant. Once they're in, they basically hitch a ride through the bloodstream, travel all the way to the lungs,
get coughed up, and then swallowed, and boom, they've made it to the small intestine where they grow into adults. It's like a crazy horror movie plot, but for parasites.
Now, if you thought that was wild, our next intruder, the liver fluke, has an even sneakier strategy. See, this one can't pull off its heists alone. It needs a partner in crime, an accomplice.
So the liver fluke's journey also starts with eggs, passed in feces. But for these to hatch, they need to land in water. The little larva that emerges has a mission. It has to find and infect a very specific type of snail. That snail basically becomes a living incubator. After the larvae develop inside, they burst out and latch onto nearby aquatic plants, just waiting. The trap is officially set. All it takes is for an unsuspecting elephant to come by for a drink or to eat those plants, and just like that, the parasites are in. From there, they make their way to their final target, the elephant's liver.
So let's just take a step back and look at the whole picture. You've got the external war, the fight for space, the raids on farms for that high-calorie food, and then you have this constant, invisible internal war against parasites. When you put those two together, you can really start to see what a massive challenge conservationists are up against.
Yeah, protecting these incredible animals is so much more complicated than just drawing a line on a map and calling it a park. You have to manage their health from the inside out. You have to navigate that tricky relationship between their home and the human world right next door. And you even have to understand the life cycles of microscopic worms. It's all connected. Every single piece of the puzzle matters.
Which really brings us to the big, overarching question, doesn't it? When a giant is fighting a war on two fronts, with threats you can see, like farms at the edge of their forest, and threats you can't, like parasites already inside them, how in the world do you protect it? How do we possibly tip the scales to make sure they survive?